Well, when you get to the halfway part of the season, you're trying to look at what you got, where the rest of the conference is, where the country is. You look at a lot of different things. I was talking to a friend of mine, Jimmy Boylan, who used to work here yesterday, and he brought up a great point. He said Popovich talked about, and I think that's kind of apropos for everybody right now in college basketball, with all the schedules being changed so much, and the number of mega conferences with these 5 or 6 big conferences. Hard to get a feel. You go on a 3-game losing streak, a 3-game winning streak. You feel awful when you lose. You feel great when you win. And so much of it is who you play, when you play them. And he talked about something that I think makes sense for us right now is we got to worry about winning games, of course, because you always do, especially in college. You don't have as many. But you got to worry about, are you getting better? I told you guys I thought we played better against Wisconsin and Nebraska. I didn't think we played smarter. And, right now we got to be getting better every game, and that's kind of the battle cry of what we're going to try to do. As you watch, there are very little margin of error between unranked and ranked teams all over the country, and we see it every night, so it's no surprise. I think top 5 teams have already lost more this year than all last season alone. And that's amazing when you think about it. But it's kind of the state we're all in and who you're playing in these conferences. I heard some stat the other day of the saddest part of the whole deal for a team like Rutgers. Their schedule is ranked number 1 in the Big Ten. As far as the top 14 teams in the Big Ten, I don't know who had them, Pomeroy or somebody had them ranked, but theirs was number 1. And so here you have a team who's struggling to start with, missing some people, and then right now they've played the toughest schedule. So something to keep in perspective. On a positive note, I said Valentine, all these players, when they come back, it takes a little time to get back in the fold of things. You can see our three-point shooting's improving. One of the reasons is Denzel. But you can also see our other guys are shooting better. Some of the reason is Denzel, but he's averaging 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6.5 assists in the last 5 or 6 games. And so I think he's starting to catch the stride he had from before. We shot the ball incredibly well for the last 2 games. We didn't shoot it as well against Maryland. You still got to make a 3. It doesn't matter who you're playing and what you're playing, and I thought we've done a good job of that, but it's maintaining the balance that I talked about after the game. Are we going to be just a 3-point shooting team and live and die with that? Are we going to be a team that has some balance? And I think as you look at the rest of the year and into the tournament, a team with balance is usually going to be more consistent. And so that's what we're striving for. As far as Michigan goes, they have a pretty balanced attack as far as their scores. They've got 4.5 guys in double figures. If you count LeVert, it would be 5. They are shooting almost 50% of their shots from 3. So we're thinking of instituting a double team the perimeter and leave the post to score, just because that's a lot of threes going up. 47 or 8% of their shots are threes. I think some of their improvements, Zach Irvin, who was injured a lot, is playing much, much better. His stats are up from 20-some% to 40-some% from the 3 if you look at non-conference to conference. I also think they're getting a little more out of Donnell, and that makes them a little more dangerous on the pick and rolls. They have enough guys that can score it. They play with almost 2-point guards sometimes, and it'll be an interesting matchup for us. Where at times can be bigger, we at times can be smaller. 90% of the times they're smaller. Robinson has shot the ball extremely well for him. He's a guy that can get a shot. He's a Bryn Forbes, only he's 6, 7, or 8. So that creates a matchup issue in itself. Other than that, I'll open it up to questions.
Tom, 2. First one, Tom, you said you may know something Tuesday. What's his status for Saturday?
He shot yesterday on our off day. I have not talked to the doctors yet today. I did not expect him to practice today at all. I think he'll go through these 2 or 3 days here, but at least he shot without a lot of pain. That was encouraging. I wish I could tell you more. I would tell you more if I could tell you more, but as I said earlier, I thought doubtful at best for Saturday, but at the same time, unlike a sprained ankle or something, if it comes around, he could play. So I guess I got to push today off to another day or two, and by Thursday, I guess we'll know for sure.
Secondly, Javon. Clearly, he's not in your mix right now. What does Javon have to do to get back there?
I know that's being talked about. I mean, it's not clearly not in our mix. Javon was a guy that we felt had to play the 4 because of his injuries first. Then we felt he had to play it because of our injuries second. He went through a time when that wasn't embracing to him. And so we're trying to get him back to the 3, and yet we're trying to do it within the confines of our other injuries. And that's why I say sometimes it creates a big problem. So now we start playing him at the 3 more. But, there's some things that he's got to get better at there. He's not out of our mix. I mean, you can't start a guy for 13 games and be out of the mix. We have not played him much lately. And yet, as I said, in these next couple of games, other than Purdue, you're looking at 3 teams that play predominantly smaller. So what does he have to do? He's not in a doghouse. It's not like it's anything where he did something wrong. It's just find a spot to fit him in. And kind of that's the same with Marv. It's coming off the injury. And, somebody brought up something to me. It took Denzel a little longer than I thought to get back to normal. I mean, his last 4 or 5 games have been good, but his first 2 or 3, when he got back, I didn't think he was out that long. But that was during the stretch when we played all those games, 4 or 5 games in a 10, 12-day stretch, and never got to practice, And I think right now, we're moving him around. We're practicing him at the 4, practicing him at the 3. It's been difficult for him, but at the same time, we were playing him a lot of minutes, and we were doing all right with that. But he's got to feel comfortable too. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's no doghouse. There's no something he did wrong. There's no something off the court. He just has to fit in, and I do think he deserves a little bit more chance, but he's got to embrace that opportunity to play anywhere. If I told Tom he was playing center, he'd be happy as 10 men if it means he was going to play a lot of minutes. So sometimes confidence is in those things. Sometimes there's a million different reasons why you're not as comfortable in certain things. But he's not out of our group in any way, shape, or form. He just hasn't played as much lately. But at the same time, he played 20 minutes a game for the first 13, and it was just because of the position and everything.
Tom, a 2-part question here. Since John Beilein took over in Ann Arbor, it's been kind of a streaky rivalry where Michigan State will win 3, then Michigan will win 3, MSU will win 2, Michigan State will win 4. So almost 10 years into you kind of matching wits with him, do you think there's kind of any rhyme or reason behind that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reason. I think both teams, if you look at the last couple of years, we played them twice without Dawson and Payne and I think Appling one time, and they played us without Levert and Walton last year twice. I think there's been some bizarre injuries and more than one. And more than if it's one, you can survive it. If it gets to be 2 and 3, I think that changes it. Just about every game has been a pretty good game. I think for the most part, our losses have been close losses, and that would be the only thing I could come up on why there's this swing. If you look at the last couple of years, to me that seems, both teams were pretty good, but I think why the swings, I think the injuries had something to do with it on both sides.
And second part, this is the first time since I think 2009 that you're only playing Michigan once. Just what's kind of the feeling for the coaching staff, the players, for only being able to play
I don't think
around?
anybody likes it. I think this is one of the only things in the whole entire United States that the media, the fans, and the coaches agree on. You know, it's. I don't think anybody's happy about it. It's the nature of the beast of what we're in. You know, when I went through and heard that rumor about Rutgers, and I went and looked at the different schedules, I just realized how crazy this is right now. Northwestern, I think, was ranked second, you know, and not that those rankings mean anything. There's sometimes somebody's got to be a third and somebody's got to be an eighth, and there could be a little bit of a difference, but it's so hard to predict things where it used to be so easy. But now the mega conferences has made it, and who plays who twice, who plays who once, where do they play them, when do they play them, who gets a 3-game stretch where they getting their brains beat out and then they go play someone they should beat and they're down, who gets a 3-game stretch where they're really playing well and they play someone they probably should lose to and they can win because their confidence is up. I think of all the years I've been in it, the schedule has created a lot of problems for some teams. Thank God we're kind of in the middle on this thing, but it makes me feel for a Northwestern or a Rutgers when I see the struggles they've had, and I look at where their schedule has been ranked right now, or what I even think in the ranking, and it's amazing how many teams those two teams have had to play in the upper echelon already. So that creates a problem, I think, for the public because they don't really understand it. And hey, I'll include me in the public. You know, until today, I didn't really take a good look at it, and it's just it's different than we're used to. Put it that way. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It doesn't make it good or bad. It's just different than we're used to, and the consistency and being able to look at, well, you know, after 9 games, I mean, 90% of the time I've been in this league after 9 or 80% after 9 games, you have played everybody once, you know, and that isn't the way it is anymore. And, you know, we haven't even seen Ohio State. We haven't seen Purdue. We haven't seen Michigan, you know, and they haven't seen us. And some teams have played, you know, we played Iowa twice early on. You know, if that would have been spread out, would have been better for us. Who knows? Who cares? But I'm just saying these are all factors now that make it a little harder for the predictability that we all want to do, whether it be in the media, on talk radio, in the bathrooms, in the coffee rooms, or in the coaches' rooms. We have just as much trouble as you guys do, to be fair about it.
Tom, you mentioned the key injuries. Wondering how you're preparing for the Levert uncertainty, and does he make them a lot different when he is in there?
Who knows? I don't even know where he is right now. I mean, I've never seen anything so quiet in all my life. You know, I guess they got better media than we got because you guys would have dug in. I don't know. I don't know what, you know, I don't know how you prepare for it. He played in one Big Ten game. I mean, we'll definitely have some film on it. You know, when you bring a guy back, it can be a tremendous lift. When you bring a guy back, you know, that first game either goes almost one way or the other. I don't know. It's the last thing I'm worrying about because I can't control it. I have no idea. And it doesn't really bother me either way. I mean, because I've seen it work both ways with my own guys. So I haven't, unless you guys might have better insight than me on it. Do you? Okay, so we're all in the same boat then. So we'll find out.
Tom, you talking about matchups, and you mentioned the other night a little bit how they've, you know, matching up to their size and everything, and they've got to guard you too. But what is that balance of reacting to what another team's doing with your rotation as opposed to trying to dictate it yourself and force them to guard you?
Yeah, well, you got to look at it. You got to look at what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And the one thing that is a strength is almost 50% of their shots are threes. And so that creates one issue. And, you know, we're going to have different lineups. There's no question about it. We're going to have different lineups, meaning we'll have a small lineup, a big lineup. We can go either way too, and we'll kind of see how the flow of the game goes. And I think that's one of our advantages. We can play both ways, and how that'll work out, I don't know. I don't even know who's going to play for them yet. Maybe tonight will tell us something, maybe not. But again, it's not something I'm concerned with, because it's we feel like we're going to be prepared both ways, not only for who they play, but how we want to play as the game goes on.
Tom, you keep talking about your love for coaching this team. You brought it up on your radio show again last night. Now, I don't know that you've hated any of your teams. Maybe one that should be named nameless. But my point is, what's that about? What is about this team that you like coaching so much? Because you've said it several times now. You don't say it every year.
No, and that doesn't mean you're right. That doesn't mean that some teams. I just mean this team has got a pretty good balance of academic, social, athletic, work ethic, leadership, all the ingredients that go into what makes a coach's job easier. The one that's made it almost as hard as any I've coached has been this 3 to 5 to 6 week injury thing that has really driven me a little crazy on it, because we haven't been able to get certain guys into the rotation. Then we get them back, and all of a sudden we are playing a bunch of games in a row we're never practicing. I can't say I love the unbalanced schedule either, but this team gives me a chance to move some people around, and no matter who you're playing, when you're playing, you have some options. But probably the most part is, I know I got some guys, when you have a guy like Denzel whose father played here and is interested in the legacy, that doesn't happen very often. There's a lot of guys that have come in that way, or have grown into that, but he came in that way. And so I think that's one thing. I'm not sure I've had a more unselfish team. If you look at, I think right now we're still leading the country in assists. We're still leading them in rebounding. That's two completely different areas to lead in, and which means, for the first time in a long time, we're ranked pretty high in our field goal percentage defense. That's happened before a lot, both three-point and regular. But we're ranked pretty high in our field goal percentage offense and very high in our three-point. So, it's just one of those teams that every day you go to practice, they work. I don't sleep with one eye open or shut. Not saying that. I mean, I'd say most times you do. I do it with my own kids, But this team has been as good a team as I've had in that respect, and I wish we could get some consistency with our group, and part of that falls on me, part of that falls on them, and part of it just falls on what happens on a day-to-day basis, meaning the injuries and different things. Excuse me. So I'll like them again. And the biggest thing is you won 3 games in a row, so you always like them more than.
Tom, after the game on Sunday, a couple of the guys were saying Michigan is just another game. And I know that's just kind of locker room speak at that point. Is that something that you like to hear, or does that not really matter to you at all?
No, I don't. That's locker room speech. That's it means it better mean more to everybody, or Judd Heathcote will come swinging back from his crutches. He always said that's a special. Your rivalry games should be special games. I don't care who your rivalry is against, and you can sometimes have a couple, but for the most part you have one, sometimes 2, but never more than that on a consistent basis. And Michigan State game is one, and it should be. It only counts one, as George Perlis says, but it's worth a little bit more than that. And then this year, when you only play them once, it's even a bigger issue. So players will be ready to play. Players will be excited about the game. You guys cause us to make sure those players handle things properly, because last couple of years I've stated things pretty soon they take on a life of its own this week. Not this year.
Kind of on that same note, Tom, how has this rivalry intensified do you feel it has just as a whole?
When you look at the years, as it was said, it wasn't just the last 6 or 8 years. I mean, we got our brains beat in early, then we did some beating, and then it's gone back and forth. I think it's intensified because of football, and that's fine with me. It's always been a pretty good rivalry. I think Judd was 19-18 or 18-19, and I have no idea what I am, nor do I care. But I know that we've won our share, and we've had some tough games, and I always look at it the same way each and every year. I think football, everything is intensified a little bit because all of a sudden the team that wasn't winning many games is starting to win games, and rivalries are university-wide most of the time, not just football or just basketball or just hockey. And so I think maybe that's helped it some.
Tom, what is the answer to the unbalanced schedule in terms of divisions? Is it making the Big Ten tournament the Big Ten champion, which I know it's not something you've ever been a fan of? What is the answer?
Well, the only thing I can think of I miss. I talked to Gene Katie today, and we were talking about some things, and one of the things I miss is the full round robin. Now I think in saying that, the Big Ten would probably be happy with that. I don't know. I don't know if coaches would all, because you want to play some non-conference games, and what you can't do is some things that nobody else is doing. If you're playing 22 conference games and other conferences are playing 16, and then you're trying to get teams in the NCAA tournament, you're in trouble. So this is not just a Big Ten issue. It's kind of, there's so many different factors in this that it's hard to look at, and everybody's got to make sure that you understand that. It's not an easy fix, and I don't have any problem with what the Big Ten's doing. I just said I miss the full round robin. I miss the start out with Iowa the first game and play Iowa the start of the second game, or one year we did it opposite. We started out with Iowa in the first game and ended with them in the last game, or whoever that would be, and but I miss that consistency. It's easier. It's easier to evaluate your team. It's easier to evaluate the opponents you're playing. It's easier to evaluate the three-point shooting, Well, this team is, like someone's going to look at us and say, well, we're shooting 43%. Well, the last 2 games we're shooting 60. Now, is there a reason for that? It's just harder. And if it's harder for a coach to do that, then I'm sure it's harder for the media to do that. And then I'm sure it's harder for the average fan who doesn't get to dissect all these numbers to go through that. So I don't know if there's anything they can do except add more games, more conference games, so that you get your rivalries play each other, so that you get more of a full round robin. But I'm not sure anybody, including me, would want that because of the ramifications of the other factors that are involved, if that makes any sense.
Tom, with McQuaid on against Rutgers, he had I think he drove down the left side and attacked with his left hand. I can't remember if he made it or not, but the decision was the sort of decision you didn't see with him, and maybe haven't seen with him. Yeah. What's it take to make that click, and then just the confidence level? Well,
that's been a big factor for us. He was so good in Italy, and really was doing that all the time. And then early in the year, he was really good. And then, I said, I don't know if it was a freshman slump. I thought some guys struggled at the end of December, beginning of January, which is a little earlier. And maybe it's just the pressure of the conference. But he is starting to feel more comfortable. He's starting to shoot better. He's starting to shoot better in practice. That would be a big key, especially if we get Tom back whenever. Now we have more depth there to play like we want to play, and start doing a little more pressuring and start doing even more running than we're doing, because I think we're good at it, especially when we rebound as well as we're rebounding. So McQuaid, it's just freshman getting confidence. It's getting some time. It's playing with the guys they played with. He's used to playing with Tom. He's used to playing with Denzel. All of a sudden, those guys are out, and for a freshman to adjust to that, it's harder, I think, than a sophomore, junior, or senior. So we're really pleased with McQuaid. We'd like him to do more like he's been doing lately. I think he went in a slump for 4 or 5 games when, he hardly made a shot, hardly took a shot, and we don't want that. He is fairly aggressive. He can get to the rim. He's got some size. He can go with his left or right hand. Going to be a hell of a player, but I think all the things that affect the rest of your team have affected him. First of all, he's a freshman, and second of all, some of the injuries that we've had, sometimes play a bigger role in a freshman than they will a sophomore, junior.
I know you mentioned the injuries on both sides, some of these recent games, Tom, but is there anything over the years that you've figured out about playing against John Beilein's system? And is this a fun matchup for you just from a preparation, X's and O's standpoint?
Yeah, they're all fun. Believe it or not. But I think it is fun to play against a different system. When I say a different system, it's more or less a 4-guard system. And I think, that has its challenges, but it also has its chess matches going both ways and how you want to do it. And they've done a great job. They've got a good team. It's a good, solid team. They've shot the ball awfully well. I think the improvement in Irvin has really helped this team. He was struggling a lot early after coming off that injury, or that back injury himself. I think he's right now one of their most improved players. And Robinson has become, and they probably knew about him last year, but a great shooter coming off, and doesn't have to do a lot. He just has to make some shots. And so we got to make sure that we challenge their guys to do things they don't want to do, as they're challenging some of our big guys to maybe cover in different areas that we don't want to do. But yeah, I'm great with it. It's a good week. It's fun to look at different ways to cover different things. Anytime you get into a different routine, I think that can be fun and exciting.
Coach, so you have a bunch of players this year that are playing their first game against Michigan. Aaron, Matthew, Deontay. How do you go about giving them, we'll call it the Michigan talk? How do you go about giving them that? Is it you? Is it your senior leaders? Who does that?
Well, I think it's more our leaders. Thank God for most of those guys. Like even Aaron's been in the Midwest. Matt has family here. Deontay's from here. But you're right. It's new and different. There is we all want to give that coach speak that everyone counts one and all this stuff, but rivalries are a little bit different. And so I try to relate it to their high school rivalries. But this is where I think Matt and Zell, they've got to cover those things in a locker room and all that. They've got to cover them in practice and make sure we know that even though the last couple games, and we can relate back to losing a game at Wisconsin or losing a game here where one play makes a difference. Usually rivalry games come down to closer games most of the time, and try to feed off that too. So, it won't be any rah-rah speech by the coach. I think it'll be a lot by the players. I really do.
Coach, you have a Big Ten best mark of 42 wins over the last 7 years on the road. What do you attribute most of the success that you've been able to have on the road, especially now with 2 big road games coming up for you guys?
Well, we've had good teams. I think that's one. But I always say you got to be tougher on the road, so I'll stick with the staple of this program. Players play, tough players win. And to win on the road on any consistent level, I just think you got to be mentally and physically tougher. You got to be able to take a crowd. You got to be able to take a couple of calls. You got to be able to take somebody's best shot. You got to take the adrenaline they're playing with, because not only in a rivalry game are you playing your rival, but at least over the last 10 or 15 years, any other team that's playing us, we've been one of the prominent teams in the league, so you're going to get everybody's best shot. So I think those would be some factors, and I think the number one reason would be what I preach every single year. You just got to be tougher, and that's why I coach that way. That's why I harp on them that way. That's why I live that way. It's the two areas that you really change, I think, for the most part, is the tougher teams can win more road games, and the tougher teams usually can win more big games. As I've said many and many times, you can win a lot of games one way, but championships, the big games, you better be physically and mentally tough enough to handle somebody else's best shot.
You have tough road environments. Chrysler used to be fairly stoic. Is it tougher to play since they, changed it and energized it and updated it, or is it just?
I don't know if the updates changed it. I think a better team has changed it.
That was my next part.
And people have, I don't know if they switched allegiance a little bit for a while. It's been a football city and a school, and basketball now is, the Final Four probably helped. And, you used to be able to get seats there. Now you can't. And that's the way it should be. They've earned that. They've won enough games. They run a clean, good program, and they've earned that. So I don't know if, it's a good place to play. I think the fixing up of it has done something, but that is still the inner workings of the place. As far as the stands go, are pretty much the same as they've always been. I just think better teams, better interest, and that's what's helped them.
Tom,
Yes.
you used the word legacy with Matt and Denzel in this game. Where does this game rank for seniors in their legacy, and especially this year for those two guys only having one shot? Does that make it more important for them, or do you try and back off them a little bit with that and let them deal with it? No, I never back off, ever. I think that's so phony. If I'm not going to put pressure on them. I'm going to put all the pressure I can put on them. Okay, and if they can't handle it, then they're not tough enough. So, I think I get this from football, because football always plays one. You want to have a winning record against your rival. That's number one. You'd like to leave the place you go to school so you can brag and talk for 50 years, and in that middle that turns into Moby Dick. You won the game, that's great. But by the time your kids are there, you won the game, and you played an intricate part. By the time your grandkids are there, you won the game, you were the star, you scored 40 points, and you made the winning basket. If you lose, you don't get to embellish on those things. So what is the game? Is it important to a senior? If it's not, their seniors and our seniors are in trouble, or any other seniors at Duke and Carolina and Indiana and Purdue and everywhere else where there's rivalry games. That's part of it. It doesn't matter if you leave the state will always talk about it. And, I hear guys come back, and if it's guys that have come back and say things like, I left here beating Michigan, or I left here doing this and doing that. Those are the legacy things that you want, the memories that you want. And you'd like to, the sad part is it's what did you do for me today, as we all know. Duke's out of the rankings, and the world is gloomy right now. They just won the damn national championship last year. You're kidding me. It's such a joke, but that's the way it is. So if you beat a team 3 times and you lose your last one, and that's what you leave, it's a different memory. You don't remember the 3. You remember the last one, and I think that's the way it is, and that's probably the way it should be. No, they'll be jacked to play, and I'm sure so are Michigan's guys. Anything else?
Yeah, wondering about Matt Costello as a leader. We talk all year about Nairn and Valentine, but what does Matt bring to that?
Well, he's been
trio, and what about Valentine and Costello and their relationship going back?
First of all, the first part of it, Matt has become the quiet assassin. He's even gotten a little personality. He's I think trying to fit in a little bit, and but I told you early in the year, has been so good with Deontay. You know, he's one of the guys, him and Kobe. Deontay owes them a lot because here's a guy that plays a similar position and has helped him each and every day he's on the court. And if you asked Didi that, I'm sure he'd tell you the same thing in a shy kind of way. But, you know, he's become a better leader because he's having more success. It's hard to be a great leader if you're not real successful. And you can be a good leader, but I don't know if you can be a great leader. Well, now he's averaging, you know, he's got the most double-doubles, I think, in the league. He's really starting to come on as a player and a rebounder. And I think he's feeling better about himself, and he's done even a better job in timeouts and huddles and before the games. And he's becoming a leader. Him and Zell have had a really neat relationship since on the day they got here. And that's been fun to watch grow. You know, they, in their own ways, they're one was a quiet guy, one was the other way, one was a guard, one was a center, but they have a very good bond. And you know, I hear them talking at the beginning of the year. They want to go out the right way, and each different event they want to go out the right way. And I think that drives them. I think it motivates them. And I think it's pretty cool that two guys from different areas have a common bond. And hopefully that's what sports is all about. So, anything else? Because we're not going to have a round table because just the way it is. But I'll be more than happy to answer any other questions if you have one. Thanks, guys.